which leads us to our 18th and last evaluation for Patreon entrants to this Ravel orchestration challenge. And, if you've been watching all 83 videos or 83 scores over, goodness, how many videos, you'll see a general theme here, which is that everybody has really submitted something unique. Unique to them, unique to their place on the path towards improvement, and just really applying their imaginations in beautiful ways. Whether those ways are exactly, whether the craft that's used in those ways is completely developed, or at a professional level, or at a semi-pro level, or it doesn't really matter. Everybody's just really done a great job, and I'm real excited to have been the mentor for this, the creator for this, and to have given everybody feedback. And this score is no less imaginative than any of the others, and it just has a beautiful, quiet, lovely little chamber approach. And it would be really cool to have seen where this could have gone, right? But I've got some other scores, some other things to evaluate by you, Rort. So I would just, give you some more time then a little later this month. So lovely job here. Let's have a listen to what it sounds like. So as you can see, a lot of the ideas here are just very jewel-like. They're just small and radiant, and I really love the sense of nuance here. Just like those little hairpins, just really leading the melody and giving some proportion to the lines. They are nicely done for the most part. Now, I'm noticing. Are you noticing this particular conflict here? Right. Now, this is because you have got three individual voices on the same line, right? And expressing all three of them as separate voices. But the thing about it is that if everybody is really just playing exactly the same time values, you can express it like this, right? You can just express that as single time values, all right? And right in here, it gets a little bit more complex, right? And so my advice here would be to have a third horn part, right? So rather than having all three of them on the same line like this, just do yourself a favor and just take the middle voice, like the horn 3 here is going to be the second high player, right? So just give whatever is the voice just below the top voice, then turn that into your third horn part and put it on a separate staff, okay? Now, I really love this, triple P, increasing to what? The horn player is going to want to know, is this P, is this pianissimo? Because what you do is you take it up to a different level and let the horn player play back and forth, and then you take it back down to triple P, right? So I would think that this should be maybe pianissimo, right? And then you're just kind of going back and forth between, pianissimo, crescendo, diminuendo, crescendo, diminuendo, and then fading back. Now, okay, so let's talk about the orchestration. Okay, now it was interesting that you cut the harmony voice here, and I don't know if that was intentional or accidental or whatever, but it actually worked really well, I felt. It's just it just comes in very barren here. Almost no sense of structure except for just a bass line and a melody. And then this one single line is added in the violas, and then on top of that is added these pianissimo horns. And yeah, that is just a lovely idea. And then this glissando brings us right into a fuller deeper arrangement, even though it's just really not a lot has changed, right? What has been added? Well, the lower voice is now being played closer to the melody, right? And the viola has taken up an additional harmony part, and you've got your horns here playing this right there, and then you've got doubling, pizzicato doubling in the basses. And look, you know what? You know, with all this stuff, you'll get exactly the same sound, right? You could say P sostenuto if you really want these to sustain. But, you know, really, yeah, it's pizzicato, right? It's almost like it's a pluck. It's almost like a drum beat from a timpani stroke or on a bass drum, where essentially the room is doing the sustaining, right? And the large cavity of the instrument is doing part of the sustaining. So the player can sit there and wiggle their finger, you know, in a vibrato sense to try to get the pizzicato to last longer. But essentially you're kind of really doing nothing all that different, whether you mark this a long value or a short value. So now there are styles, like modern styles of pizzicato in all string playing, but specifically, you know, in cello and bass, where you really try to get pizzicato to be a fluid, sustaining sound. So there are all kinds of long time values, and you have like you can even have slurred pizzicato, which usually only works when you go up, and you can have pizzicato that that snaps like Bartok, or you can have pizzicato that has like portamento, where the finger is sort of moving around. Usually up is the best way because it adds energy when the string gets shorter. But yeah, but really in a case like this, in a casual orchestration, it's just really not needed to have these long time values on all this pits, right? So I'm just seeing that it's almost, it just, you know, it speaks to me of just copying and pasting and sticking a pizzicato on it, right? So like a more apt part would really just be single quarter notes, right? So let's think about that. Let's maybe try to improve that, everybody, in future evaluations. Now, this is nice. I love this A natural pedal tone here amongst all of this stuff, okay? And it's kind of interesting because you have a conflict here with A flat in your horns. Let's listen to what that sounds like. Right? You know, so you've got this, and you've got, oh, wait a second. Okay, so before we get any further, I'm going to just take a little bit of liberty here and turn this back into a transposing score. All right, so now I can really read these. I was looking at this, which was written as an E flat, and thinking that was a conflict with this A natural. Just really not thinking to myself, you know, almost not bothering to check whether or not it was transposed. So, but yeah, look, I got it. You may have noticed that that I have already done a little bit of editing here in terms of layout, just to make these staves, you know, nice and big and easy to read on a screen. Okay, and now this is really lovely here. The way that the harp leads things up here to a woodwind sound. And it sort of, after listening to this, I was thinking, oh man, I'd like to hear that harp do that again a few times and just become a recurring feature of this particular section. So I'm recording right now.
Oh, sorry. Did you say Charlie was okay to do screen time?
Yes, I let him start early because I needed to sort of finish what I was doing down here.
Sorry.
It's all right. Now, looking at the way these winds are set up, there are a lot of features from before in these strings. Like, this little pedal tone here, that is so nice. And I kind of miss the sense of motion, though. Do you know what I mean? I keep coming back to this in many, many scores. Everybody is just slurring the transcribed left-hand part, which had slurs in it, right? But the feeling of that left-hand part was percussive because it was pianistic, right? So when we lose that sense of whatever pizzicato or motion or whatever, that sort of sense of the imperative, then I feel that there is a sense of inertia sort of starts to settle in, right? So once again, kind of coming back to those familiar points now. Now this is very, very cool. I just like the way that it all balances out. It's just a very sweet sound, and I like the register that the instruments are sitting in. Just like you've got around the throat tone area for clarinets is not exactly. I mean that is not a throat tone note, but yeah, the B flat is a throat tone, and the middle register for the oboe, and bass register for the bassoon, and this nice middle register for the flute. Yeah, it just has a really lovely sound. And once again, I really like the nuances. Now here, you're going fairly high up to B flat, and that's going to be, sure, it can be played in a thing that they perceive, the flutists are going to perceive as whatever pianissimo means up there, right? But it almost makes me wish that you had scored a piccolo up there, right? So that it just would be a very easy floating note, as opposed to something that is just really needs some focus to play soft, right? Or maybe if you had increased your dynamic here to like mezzo forte, that would be just a much more easy place to be. But yeah, and here you sort of jump in with some violin doubling at an octave below, and that's kind of fun. But I'm not even sure that you need it. If we just select these staves here and have a listen. Right, and then same exact spot with the violins. So it adds a really interesting color in there. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't do it, but you would almost have been able to add those colors, with more voices allocated to different wind parts. Second clarinet or first oboe, and this being given to second oboe. So you could have stayed with a woodwind sound, right? And I almost feel like you came in a little early with your strings. You could have come in right on this B flat, and the sense of of adding the strings would have been more imperceptible. Or you could have started off at like triple P and then crescendo into the B flat here. But that's a lot of people are doing that, and there is a time and a place for that. But maybe it's being used a little too much as a way of dovetailing into something, when really the most effective dovetailing is just to trade off from one note to another. Okay, so this is actually pretty nice, though. It's going to be a little heavier right at the end here because you're putting two string groups together. I almost wonder whether or not there is more harmonization or other functions that you could have done here with the second violins, even just to like double the oboes or maybe the clarinets here. But yeah, or it also leaves me wondering whether you had intended to fill this out a little bit more, to maybe have more pizzicato from the double bass, maybe more harp, maybe at this point add more string elements and maybe put in some more horn. But look, the way you ended up doing this was actually very effective because it's such Such an interesting contrast. Now, I can't remember the I can't remember the name of the professor. I think it might be Lovelock. Might be William Lovelock, where he basically he counseled against scoring too much, where you basically trade off from section to section. He said, "Oh, don't score things where first it's just the strings, and then it's just the winds, and then it's just the brass, and you kind of go back and forth between the different groups." So, okay, with all respect to him, I actually don't see that much nowadays. Now, he might have seen that quite a lot back in his day. But, nowadays, I don't see that so much. And I think that the way that you changed sections is really well justified by the excellence of the scoring. Just really nice ideas, nicely put together. I didn't really hear anything that just really didn't belong and was a big mistake. So good solid approach. And, there's not really a whole lot more to say except for just, maybe adding a third voice here. A second staff, so you can put the third horn on it. And what else? I couldn't say, except that I wish that I had heard just a little bit more. So I think we're just gonna have to make these first level contributions, the option longer, because I felt like a lot of ideas barely got off the ground, and they were heading to excellent places. And I would have just, it wouldn't have hurt me to listen to just a few more bars or a couple more passages. So yeah, so I like this a lot. So really great work, Root, and I want to thank everybody who took part in this on Patreon, on Facebook, and yeah, I just feel really great about this, and I'm looking forward to the next challenge in a couple of months. I think I'm going to do it just before one particular. I have a couple of big plans for next year, so I think I'll just do it like after the holidays and before that big plan gets underway. Okay, and I'll talk more about that when we get closer to it. So great job, really enjoyed it. And, now I think it's back to some Stravinsky analysis coming up, and some talking about how all of the things that you can view him and his work, and different programs that are about him and the Rite of Spring and films and so on. So that will be coming up in a few days. Thanks, everybody, so very, very much for all the support and for participating, and I'll see you soon.